Hello, guys. I am Shane Davis, 20-year comic veteran, mainly working at DC Comics, Image Comics, a little bit of Marvel, a lot of DC, though. And that's kind of what we're wanting to talk about on this episode is DC of the past. And we do talk about that from time to time around here. But it kind of came up in a previous live stream, like with some of the announcements that DC's publishing in the DC Compact line. What happened? What actually happened to, I don't know, DC Comics? Why are the comics in the past more interesting than the things that they're doing today? And I kind of started looking at it, and I was kind of thinking about my career in comics and not trying to toot my own horn, but make sure to go over here and back Annatomic while you still can. We're going to keep this in demand a little bit. But go over there, secure your copy of our prequel series to Inglorious Rex. Now, my career at DC Comics is sort of interesting in a way because it kind of encompasses a lot of change in time in comics. I did kind of come into comics working at DC Comics through merchandising artwork, licensing artwork, and then some fill-ins and stuff like that in the Mike Carlin era of DC Comics, where DC Comics was kind of running so far ahead of schedule, like 6 months ahead of schedule, that they kept a monthly printing process going with pretty solid runs and fun comics. People liked them, sure. But there was a shakeup, and that was Dan Didio. And what happened with Dan Didio coming into DC Comics was a lot of talk on the street of this new guy from TV coming in. Things were going to change. Rather than having Titans number whatever issue, we're going to do an all-new Teen Titans with a new #1, which seems super taboo to certain DC fans with Geoff Johns, Mike McCollum. Like, things like that were making waves with fans, and people were reacting. Now, we'll talk about that later on, but a lot of people would start to bitch about Dan later on with killing characters, and some people already in the comments are going to fill that up and flood that. But what I want to talk about in this video is really the 1-2 punch that was probably some of the prime years of DC Comics in our lifetime, and that was the energy of Dan Didio and the passion for writing comics, which was Geoff Johns. Now, both guys are no longer at DC Comics, and we have been seeing, like, let's call it a failure, right, of the company and their publication practices right now. The numbers are in the toilet. Everybody thinks Batman is selling 100,000 copies when it's probably selling closer to 70,000, 80,000 copies. They're rebooting Batman again with the same artist they've been using. Jim Lee's on Hush. Nobody really cares, by the way. I bought the first issue and never even read it. I don't really see a lot of hype on it. Bad decisions, right? Geoff Johns. I mean, here's a big Superman movie coming. Why didn't Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee do Superman and do what they did with Hush, but do it with Superman during this change? See, a lot of things just don't make sense. I pull back and I kind of look at this and I'm like, well, DC Comics is doing the only thing they know to do, and that's to sell Batman, whereas Geoff Johns and Dan Didio were able to sell Green Lantern. They were able to sell Flash. I mean, Green Lantern was outselling Batman at one point and building tons of new characters, selling tons of new t-shirts. Again, Geoff Johns, Ethan Van Sciver, the whole Lantern Corps thing, the spectrum of colors. Again, I created a lot of Red Lanterns. I can tell you from behind the scenes, there was a creative passion and initiative to hit fans with something new, but also honor the legacy characters. And this was kind of like, I'm not going to say Geoff and Dan were always on the same page. It was probably the best that they weren't. Dan was an aggressive publisher, always wanting to go to the next step, or editor-in-chief, and always how do we get the most out of this book and get the fans to react, but also spin off into the next thing, maybe sometimes to a detriment. But you also had Geoff on the other end kind of tethering that back to story and character and fan reveal. And there was just so many good things going on at this time at DC Comics, especially looking back in hindsight, that the company is in desperate need. Recently on the live stream, I watched the Joshua Williams, Scott Snyder DC KO announcement. And about 8 minutes into the video, I finally heard what the project was. And guys, you go watch the video. I'm not going to go through it. It's a very long, dry video with little energy in it. And after patting themselves on the back, they basically say they're doing like Mortal Kombat, where the character's going to have to fight each other in a tournament and eliminate one another to be able to fight the final boss, which is Darkseid, is literally Mortal Kombat in any fighting game you've ever played to get to the final boss. And it just seemed flat. And then I realized after muddling through the horrible sales pitch from two guys that have almost zero energy and are convincing me not to buy this book, I realized there's actually, unless they write themselves out of it, like, how are these characters going to operate on the team of heroes when they've actually eliminated each other in combat, maybe even killing one another? How are these guys going to work together ever again? How are these guys going to trust each other ever again? And I was like, that's something right there that would kind of get questioned by Dan Didio or even Geoff. And I feel like the company lost a lot with Dan leaving, whatever that situation was. I was not there, but I was working with Dan when that happened, and at DC Comics and Geoff. And again, I thought about Ray Fisher. Nobody really cares about the Ray Fisher thing anymore. Like, I don't even know if it was a real thing when it happened, but this fake, I guess, cancellation attempt on Geoff Johns, because he's still making comics, was so weak. Right. And it probably cost the American comic book industry a lot because let's face it, nobody's really filling Geoff's shoes. Even when Geoff was probably writing, I don't know, not a lot with Rebirth, he was still overseeing the foundation and the roots of the books and the monthly titles of Rebirth and letting other people write them. And it functioned a lot better. People liked the publishing line. And then, like, I look at, like, especially this new print initiative, the DC Compact stuff, which I guess I have some stuff coming out in. And I look at this and I see not a lot of new comics. And this is troublesome in a lot of ways because, like, you know, outside of like Far Sector here, I don't think there's anything that's been published in like the last, I don't know, 4 to 5 years that is mainstream enough to put in a big publishing initiative, to the point DC Comics made a YouTube commercial for this with real people pretending they're reading these books. And this is a smaller comic for people that don't know, manga size, trying to hit a new demographic that really is a weak attempt, in my personal opinion, because there's no sequels to these books. This is the book. Like, you know, Hush, I guess they're doing Hush too. Batman Court of Owls, I mean, I don't know. They got more of it, I guess. Catwoman, you know, Darwin Cook's gone. Wonder Woman, Earth 1, maybe there's a volume 2 or whatever. But again, I don't even know if that Wonder Woman, Earth 1 collects just volume 1 or 1 through 3. So maybe that's a one and done. Watchmen, one and done. Joker, one and done. All-Star Superman, that's the whole entire thing. That's one and done. So in a manga book, when there's really no direct sequel of 1 to 10, you're not going to get the success you're chasing because you're not able to do it with these short runs. So this is kind of like an imposter syndrome type thing where it's going to get a boost because it's impostoring, you know, some sort of thing it's not. But back to the point, like, this line is pulling from 10 years ago or more, or 20 years ago in some cases. And like, why? Because there is a lack of energy to even sell this stuff or direct vision. And again, I bring back to Geoff. Geoff was a very passionate guy with the characters he worked on, and maybe even guiding some other creators in directions of other titles. So you don't have that guy at DC anymore. You don't have the guy that can make JSA actually sell, to make Green Lantern the top selling book at DC Comics, to make, I don't know, fun one-off, I guess, not one-off, but series like Stargirl. I'm kind of lost at what the sole creator is, the soul of DC Comics is right now when I look at the publication line and when I look at the lineup and stuff like that. And right now everything's about James Gunn and what James Gunn is doing. And it seems like the comic division is kind of rudderless. Like, there's no Dan Didio, Carnival Barker, and exciting fans at cons, at panels, to get on board with whatever new publishing initiatives they're doing. And that's where I feel DC's at creatively, and from a publisher standpoint, is there's just not that spokesperson. Now, people are going to point to Jim Lee. Yeah, Jim Lee by name, but I just don't see that hard carnival barking voice that you need to sell comics, like a Stan Lee, or to some extent Joe Quesada, I guess. Dan was great at it. I just don't see that at the company. And on the creative end, again, I'm coming up flat here. I think back at like things like New 52, and it was huge. It was huge for the ambition of it, which I would credit a lot of it to Dan and some of the editorial staff at the time, like whether they're Eddie Berganza people. I mean, I remember walking into Eddie's office and there was a stack of script or a stack of paper, and he's like, "Those are all pitches I have to go through." They were figuring this shit out as they went at the end of Flashpoint. But you had the craziness of Dan pushing these things. And then you had, the creative foresight of Geoff Johns, who really cared about story and continuity with the characters at the root, the core of the characters. And you put those things together and you had fans turning up. Now, I get it. Some people are going to say, well, the 52 in hindsight was a mess. Yes, but we all bought into it. We all bought into it. We all believed in it. And right now, I just don't know if DC Comics has that. Do they have the guy to get me to believe in the publishing line again? And if not, I mean, DC Comics is going to, I guess, continuously reprint old material. And that's the publishing line, is how to repackage Batman Hush for the millionth time, how to repackage All-Star Superman, even though I bought it in singles, I bought it in 2 trade collections, I bought it in omnibus, I bought it, in another edition that they recently published that was a hardcover, and I guess now I can buy it again here. It's like, even me as a fan, I don't know if I need to buy these books again. I already own them. Like, I mean, how many times can you guys sell me the same book? And you would think, if that's even a question, how many times can you guys sell me the same book? Then hire some creators that can make books that you can sell multiple times. Because right now, I'm just not feeling it. I don't know if I'm the only one that, for the first time in a long time, I think DC publication is completely lost. I think you do need a lightning rod person there to bring attention to the publishing line. I don't think you can just say DC Comics will always exist because people know these characters or because there's a big James Gunn movie around the corner. I don't think that's going to keep the publishing line alive, because in the end, in the corporate structure of things, they're not prepared to lose money month after month after month for just because of comics. If you guys will, hit like, subscribe, ring the bell for notification. I'm kind of curious about your thoughts on this. Also, again, don't forget to get your copy of Annatomic. The link is down below. And again, if you missed out on Inglorious Rex, well, don't miss out. You can pick up issues 1 and 2 on our store, and it will ship out next day. I'll hit you guys with this trailer for Annatomic, and we'll catch you guys again with another video.
If fighting was a god, I would worship him. I would bow to him. I would pray for victory. For he only grants opportunities. But behind every god lurks a devil. And the devil wants me to take a dive. My name is Annatomic. And this is how my legend was made.